Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy this channel and you'd like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month where we do deep dives into some of the best art books around, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. You also get access to an online digital archive where you can read my comic books in their entirety. You also get access to a Patreon exclusive Discord server where we share work in progress, tips, process, art tools, general shop talk, and more. All that for as little as $2 a month. There's higher tiers for higher rewards. You can head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI to check it out. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, if you'd like to get work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you're a digitally on Comixology or Kindle, go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a self-contained psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can also pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. So it's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both have extensive back matter, script excerpts, page layouts, character designs. I basically show you how I put the book together. So you can check out all of those. And there are book flip throughs on the homepage of my YouTube channel. There's links for all these in the descriptions for the video. Or if you're watching on Twitch, there's links in the About tab of the channel. Okay, so before we dive into some actual drawing, I was just going to show you a piece that I just dropped. Finished this yesterday. And this was a piece I wanted to do for Black History Month. It's a tribute to the actor Bolaji Badeo. He is a Nigerian actor, and he was the man behind or underneath the suit in the very first Ridley Scott Alien movie. I, only a few years ago found out, and I can't remember where it was that I came across it, but I was shocked that I didn't know that the man inside the suit was a Black man. So I thought, you know what? I'm a nerd. I love sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. I'm going to do this for a tribute for Black History Month. So I did this piece. I posted on all the socials, and I also posted a time lapse of this, which I will probably make a short out of to put that up on YouTube as well. But I just wanted to share this little piece with you because, I actually had intended to be working on it during the live stream, but we've had some other interesting things to be sharing over the past couple of weeks. So, the only time I was working on this was in off hours in the evenings. So just wanted to share this new recent piece with you. So it's not a print. It's just a piece that I wanted to make as a tribute, to Black History Month. So anyway, beyond that, what am I working on? I'm actually behind on some work for my figure drawing class. I'm currently taking a class with the instructor Karl Gnass at figuredrawingschool.com, his website. And I'm trying to take a drawing. The drawing that's on the left is a drawing that it is a reconstruction of a pose the model took during class. This class is on heads, hands, and feet. This is obviously a foot. And I was trying to work out the volumes and the lighting, and structurally it just wasn't working. So, I showed him this, the drawing that's on the left is kind of like part of our homework. And he said, he wanted to see me do an actual breakdown into basic volumes of the leg, of the foot, really. So I'm coming back at this, and I'm taking another stab at it and breaking it down into simple shapes and adding some cross contours to kind of indicate the directions of these volumes. So, pardon me, gotta blow my nose a little bit. So we're kind of doing the fixing bad figure drawing segment. That's kind of what this is. But it's sort of a me coming back and just trying to figure out how to get this to work, because it really felt like it was not working in the well, there's a longer story, which is that when I drew this from the model during class, the light was coming from the left side. So as you can see, there's a shadow area on the left, and the light's coming from sort of the upper right. And when I drew it, it really did not come out well. And I needed to, in order to really understand the structure, I shaded it on the left. And that made all the volumes kind of feel like they came into place. And the drawing you're seeing on the left is me shading it with the light coming from the right. And then afterwards, after I did that drawing, I said, okay, now that I understand what's happening with this figure, I'm going to go back and I'm going to shade it with the light coming from the left side now. And I did multiple drawings, and none of them worked. They all were just bad. So that's the point at which I turned him in to class, and he suggested doing an anatomical breakdown of these basic volumes. So now at this point, I'm actually going to draw this simple volumetric breakdown twice, because the first one is, what you're looking at here. The second one, I'm going to try and push it more towards what the model was actually doing, because I think I've been drawing long enough that if something's not working, I just tweak it to make it work. So, for instance, the lighting, the whole thing with it not working, being lit from the left. So I was like, all right, I'll put the lighting on the right. And then the forms, stood out more. The other thing was that the position, the actual angle, the foot, the upper leg, not the foot. The foot was pretty much in this pose, but the leg was more foreshortened, meaning that as opposed to it being up and down, it was turned more away from the viewer, or rather like this. So it was more moving away in space. And it was a little bit more of a straight on shot. And I turned it so we could see a little bit more, not a full 3/4, but I turned it so we could see more of the side of the foot. And in both of those instances, it made it clearer, but it was very distinctly moving away from what was actually in front of me. And I think that that's also another challenge that I want to try and address is, are those changes just changes that had to be made? Was there a way to draw it as it was seen and still get it at the angle that I want? So I want to do another one of these where I draw it more straight on. Straight on and turned away, just to see how that looks. All right, so that will do for this guy. Let's move him over a little bit. And I think I'm gonna have to shrink it down if I'm going to have space to draw another one next to it. Not a lot, just a little. All right. I don't know if this particular video is going to inspire a lot of questions and conversation because most people are just like feet are notoriously hard to draw. So they're just like, I just don't draw them. They are hard to draw. And unlike drawing hands, you don't really get much recognition for taking on the challenge of drawing feet because with hands, our faces are interacting with them, they're holding objects, they're part of our everyday life. So when someone draws good hands, like, ooh, those hands are great. Like you kind of need to be able to draw hands if you're going to be doing visual storytelling because hands are storytellers. However, with the feet are as hard as the hands, but they get none of the love. They're not as engaged in storytelling, except for like toe curling and toe pointing, and at times when it's needed. But in terms of just general drawing, nah, I don't think that they get the love. Hang on, let me see. All right, I don't need to have this go all the way up, but let's try this now. So see, this is challenging because it's just trying to even conceive. Let me create a new layer just so I've got the option of moving these legs around separately. The first step is even just changing perspective. Let's say, all right, trying to move it from a cylinder that's more 3/4. When I talk about the cylinder, I'm talking about the calf and the lower leg. See what happens if I draw it like this. That is too strong. That's kind of close, but I feel like I want to go bigger. And I know I'm working digitally. I could just scale it up, but I'm trying to limit myself to some of the constraints I would have if I were working traditionally, which I broke that when I was drawing the foot down here and adding the shading, and I rotated the screen so I could get a nice arc that I wanted. So I broke that whole that claim that I'm trying to stick to the actual difficulties that you would have in drawing the foot on a piece of paper. Now, when after I draw this second foot construction, my goal after that is going to be to try to redraw each of these with just simple lighting on top of them. So this is something that comes up every once in a while on the Patreon Discord. The fact that I am constantly harping on drawing boxes in perspective. Like if there was one thing that I wanted that I would do in terms of I'm trying to improve my basic drawing skills. Doesn't matter whether it's figure drawing, animal drawing, buildings, vehicles. It's just being able to take a box and turn it in any direction, because that is the skill that I feel like I use the most in terms of trying to create a sense of actual volume and structure with any object. It's trying to make it feel three-dimensional with the aid of boxes. And then like this box here, it feels like this heel doesn't round out enough at the top. So what I'm going to do is just insert kind of a curved plane and just trim off some of that pointed box corner there. And I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. Pardon me, gotta blow my nose again. For some reason, my allergies are acting up today. My wife was having the same problem the past like week or two. They're just catching up to me now. All right. So I started getting a little bit too caught up in the details of the foot and not enough in the volume of the leg. And this is really tricky because what I'm doing here, what I'm attempting to do, see, do I have anything cylindrical? I've got a water bottle. So I've got this water bottle, which actually does have some concentric rings, although I don't want to point it towards my tablet. The challenge I'm getting is that I'm fighting is this thing, the leg, is pointing towards us and it's tilted slightly to one side. So I'm not doing something that's perfectly just foreshortened. It's not a 3/4 foreshortened. It's just a little bit off. And that little bit of off is one of the things that is the most difficult for me to draw. Like for instance, I don't have a problem drawing front facing figures like heads. I have a problem with 3/4 heads. But those heads where the head is just a little bit, just shifted a little bit. Those subtleties, for some reason, well, I can tell you exactly why. It's because I like to, not like to, but the way that my brain tends to operate is I do things on a grand scale. And I don't mean grand as in, oh, it's epic. It's like, as opposed to doing a subtle movement, I tend to do large, like dramatic movements. For instance, years ago, I took salsa dancing lessons, and I was really, really bad at it. And the reason why I was bad at it is because salsa is a lot of like tiny little footsteps and tiny little moves. It's just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the movements are not big. They're simple, subtle steps. But I have long legs, and when I move, I go. up, and I move my leg and I go down. And I move my arm, I'm like, oh, swinging my arm across instead of just and the same way that my whole body moves when I try to dance, it is similar to how my hand moves when I try to draw. And it is very, very challenging for me to get myself to do subtle things. And I'm even now, I feel like I'm fighting to pull this leg back into foreshortening, this lower leg here, this calf area. But there is something that I realized many, many years ago when I started taking figure drawing classes. And it's the reason why I spend so much time with drawings that aren't working out well. Um, and it is that if you don't know how to draw something, or if you draw something badly and you don't address it, if you don't learn why it's bad, then you're always going to draw that thing bad. It doesn't magically get better. You have to consciously look at it, analyze it, and figure out what you're doing wrong. You know, otherwise you're just going to keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. And honestly, I think that's one of the things that frustrates a lot of people about figure drawing, and the reason why some people never want to do it, never want to engage in the challenge of drawing from live models, is because once you start seeing how many things you don't know, that's one thing to say, oh, okay, well, I've got some weaknesses here. I guess I need to work on that. It's another thing to sit down and do the work and realize, oh, wow, I understand this far less than I thought I did. And if I ever want to understand it, I'm going to have to do a deep dive, because deep dives are only fun if you're hungry for the knowledge. If you're doing a deep dive to check off a list of, okay, I've studied feet, I've studied the skull, I've studied hands, I've studied knees. If you're just studying them to check them off on your list, then hell yeah, it's tedious. It's like, I don't know why anybody would even want to do figure drawing if you're just checking stuff off on a list. Um, I want the knowledge because I want my artwork to be better. I want the knowledge because, you know, I've become engaged in the idea of being a better draftsman. Like the idea of actually just learning how to draw the figure better is incredibly engaging to me. Like aside from the utility of being able to draw comic books and making other illustrations and making them better, the act of just the study has become fascinating to me. But but yeah, if it's just a matter of saying, oh well, I'm supposed to study this, so I'm going to study it, that's tedious. And I can see why people wouldn't want to do it. And even this calf that I'm drawing right here, I still feel like I'm not getting it foreshortened enough. And even this, I realize now I'm not properly drawing the shape of the calf because I'm drawing it too symmetrical, and the calf is not symmetrical. Hey, Gary's in the chat. Creator of Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots. How you doing, Gary? Thanks for popping in. Doing a deep dive anatomy study. See, there we go. Turning the screen instead of forcing myself to keep it at a level angle, just to deal with the reason why I'm trying to keep these dealing with the same constraints that I would feel if I were working with traditional medium is because normally when I when I draw in figure drawing class, I'm not drawing on the iPad. I'm drawing with charcoal pencils on newsprint. So I'm trying to force myself to deal with the challenges, the constraints that I would have if I were working on this the way I normally would in class. And I know that I'm probably going to hate myself for doing this, but I'm going to go and grab an anatomy book and take a look at the actual shape of the calf. Because the fact that I know the calf is not a symmetrical kind of egg shape, that it's, bulges out more on one side than the other, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself by reinforcing bad structural habits. And you guys are like, dude, you're drawing feet. This is boring as shit. Well, you know what? That's the whole point of this. The whole thing of my channel has been like, people always like to show the really beautiful piece or the amazing time lapse of the cool piece they did. But very few people show the struggle. And I don't mean to share it like, oh, I'm trying to show you guys how boring art can be or how hard it is. It's more of, this is the getting up at 5 a.m. and doing like 100 crunches and 50 push-ups, and then going for a run. That's what this is the art equivalent of. This is sitting down and doing work that makes you better at the fun stuff. And a lot of people don't show that. It's tedious as all hell, but that's that is the nature of this beast. Hang on a second. All right, I think I'm going to run behind this screen here. It's a whole bookshelf, and I'm going to grab some anatomy books. All right. Let's see here. All right. So my go-to anatomy book has been, for a number of years, has been The Atlas of Human Anatomy for the Artist by Stephen Peck. So let's scroll through here and find the legs. Well, they've got the bones separated into one section and the muscles in the other. So let me go to the muscles of the leg. Let's see here. Now, in this book, they've got a simple diagram. Let me. Where's the camera? Only because if I change the big camera on screen, to me, I will forget to change it back. I've done this enough times now that I figure it's easier to just show you from the camera on my tablet than it is for me to change the screen up there because I will keep forgetting. But the simple shape of the calf is more like just a teardrop, but it is, slightly bulging out to one side. So I could just keep it simple like that, but I am going to flip through here and see if I can get a more detailed. Yeah, I guess this is probably the most detailed image I'm going to find. Right here. I do realize the downside of showing you on my screen, on my tablet phone camera, is that I'm holding it at an awkward ass angle. Because if I hold it straight forward, it's not catching as much light. Well, it looks shadier or darker on my screen than it does in real life. But the fact that it bulges outward and upward on the left, on the outer side, and then down on the inside. Let's see if I can try and add a little bit of that to this shape here. So if I give this a little split here. Let's see here. Gary says, I agree. And he says, honestly, it's why I find time-lapse drawings a little uninteresting because I know the process and I feel like they're more, no pun intended, performance art. And Gary says he's got this one too, this particular art book. And Kingslow Fitness says, good to see you did the work before going over reference, something I need to do more often. Been listening more than watching. Good to hear the lecture, and I got that book too. Everyone, I'll tell you, this is another one that a lot of my art book references go back to Karl Gnass, because I think the first or second year I was studying with him, he said everyone needs to have at least one anatomy book. And he actually recommends, as you go through your art making journey, to maybe have multiple books, because different books, some cover things that others don't, or some may present a particular anatomical detail in a way that resonates with you more than others. And I mean, I've probably got like, the number of art books I have is ridiculous, but the number of anatomy books alone, I think I have probably like, 3 or 4. I mean, if you include all of the Bridgman books as anatomy books, because I feel like they're instructional drawing books, not necessarily anatomy books, but if you include all the Bridgman books as anatomy books, then I've probably got like almost a dozen. Because I have the big Bridgman's Guide to Life Drawing, the thick book that has like the greatest hits of everything. And then I have like 6 of the small Dover books: Constructive Anatomy, The Human Machine, The Book of 100 Hands. It goes on and on and on and on. But anyway, so let's see if we sort of shape this a little bit more. So this is, and the other thing is, again, I'm trying to draw this foreshortened. That's the other crazy pain in the ass here, is I'm doing this and I'm trying to reshape these, and I'm also trying to at the same time say, remember, you're looking at this from below. So it's like challenge upon challenge upon challenge. And there are times when I get in here and I'm doing this, and I'm like, do I really want to understand the calf that bad? Really? Of all the things I could be doing. And yeah, in the long run, it's not the most important thing to me as an artist, but I look at the process of learning anatomy with a capital A, like the whole of what makes up the human figure. I look at it as a continuum. It's a system. The same way that the body is it's a biological system. And I would like my knowledge and my grasp of the whole to be as rich as possible. And that means digging down on minor details like the actual shape of the calf just as much as digging down on the shape of the eye socket or the piece of cartilage that's in the nose makes up the bridge of the nose. Trying to capture those shapes, I feel like that's just as important as trying to capture this. The shapes on the face or the hands seem more important because we look at them more. But if I want to understand the whole, I feel like I need to do a deep dive on the details. Let's see here. Now, Gary asks an interesting question. He says, "You were an athlete. How much do you think that figures into your sensitivity to anatomy?" Um, you know what? I think it probably plays quite a bit into my sensitivity to anatomy because when we had injuries, I could identify where those injuries were taking place. Um, I think well, what's funny is even now, like my wife will sometimes have, neck problems or back problems, and she'll need me to rub some massage oil on them and just rub out like, if she's got a stiff neck. And the fact that as I'm doing it, she keeps saying that my hands are magical and I miss my calling as being a masseuse. But the fact that I understand where the muscles insert into the skull and or well their origins and their insertion points, so I understand the places where if a particular muscle is sore, where that tension is probably from, and I can reach up and rub them now, and rub out that area. Now that's talking about something that's physical. That's not saying directly in terms of drawing, which I'm getting away from that. So I'm trying to think of in terms of bringing it back specifically to drawing. I think that it plays a role, but I think you asked a good question in the sense that I don't think I've ever properly defined what that role, my experience with anatomy in terms of being a competitive athlete, what that plays in terms of me drawing it, except for the fact that much in the same way that Disney animators would, when they're trying to get an expression, they'll look in the mirror and they're like they'll do all the facial expressions trying to get that. They'll be mugging in a mirror just to get the sense of that I can be drawing something and I'll have somebody rearing back to punch, and I will. It's not just me looking in the mirror and taking the pose of the punch. It's like I'll tense my muscles and I will internally feel what that is that the figure is doing. And the fact that I'll do that for a lot in my body, where whether I'm taking reference photos or not, sometimes I will just stand up and take a pose and feel how that feels. I mean, usually if I'm going to that point, I will take some reference, but a lot of times, more often than not, instead of standing up and taking the reference, I'll use my little gray men, my little figures, and I'll put them in the pose, and I will pose the figures in whatever pose that I need, but I will still do the thing of not looking at myself, but tensing and feeling how those muscles feel and how the tension feels in the body. And that will inform my gestures. It'll inform how I lean the fingers to one side or the other. Or, just realizing that the muscles, I don't get into the detail of if this arm is bent, that means the bicep is going to be bent and the triceps on the underside are going to be relaxed to let the muscle curve over. But I don't consciously think about it, but I'm aware of it. And I'm aware that over the entire body, that as one side of the muscle contracts, the other side relaxes. And feeling that physically in my body will make me change the drawing in subtle ways that are exactly what you're asking about, but I don't put a conscious word on them. I don't consciously say, "Oh, I am making this muscle tensed and this muscle relaxed." That's what's happening, but I don't process it as consciously. So, and I think that actually that's you asked a really deep question that I really had to think about because I know that what you're saying happens in me, but I've never defined it before. So, bravo. Great question. And I'll tell you, as I'm drawing this foot here, I still want to go back and do another drawing of this same angle. Well, not exact same angle, but draw this more foreshortened. Let's see here. Yeah, because as I'm looking at this, even this still feels not quite right. Well, not quite right is a little bit indistinct. It's a little vague. Um, to be more specific, the foreshortening of the calf, I feel like it was even more than what I am drawing here. And this is one of those where the act of what I'm doing here is me just pursuing holes in my knowledge. And the idea, going back to the box thing, is okay, if I can draw a box that we're sort of looking down at, sort of a three-quarter box. Let's say that this represents sort of like where the ankle and the heel and the leg all meet. You know, that first box might be the first drawing. This box that I'm doing here now will be this drawing. And even this, I'm roughly drawing in this box here. It's a little wonky. And as I'm looking at it, my memory of what the model was doing was probably more like this third box that I'm drawing here, where the leg itself, see, that's even that. It's so subtle, but the leg was super foreshortened. However, the foot coming off of it went down in such a way that's like it's almost like we're kind of looking at the underside of the foot, except for the that the foot was sort of was also foreshortened, moving away from us. Point being is that we were seeing less of the length and more of the underside of the leg. Not underside, but more. Well, yeah, I guess more of the underside. Like if I were to switch back to a cylindrical view as opposed to a square view, that we were seeing more of this as opposed to what I'm currently showing you. And I feel like I want to do one more where I'm trying to draw that. So doing all of this before even getting the before getting into working on actual light and tone on this. I see my boy Vaughn in the chat. Industrial minded artist says, hit that like button. You know what, y'all? Please do. Smash those like buttons. Spread the word. If there's other artists you know who are into listening to someone just going on and on about anatomy deep dives, share it, forward it to them. Spread that word. And thanks for the shout out, man. I appreciate the encouragement and love. You know, and the funny thing is, as I'm holding this whole time I'm doing this, my arm is getting tired. I've been holding the anatomy book in one hand, like you can't see it in the screen, but this anatomy book has been like right next to the tablet while I'm drawing, and my arm is getting tired. But I realize that I'm drawing the calf with the widest part much higher up than it should be, because the wider part, you know, should be sort of like right much closer to where it transitions from the tendon that's in the leg to the calf itself. Although I realize I'm also drawing this in such a way that I'm not that this tendon should be widening out more. The calf is not well. I mean, that's the thing. The calf is easy to draw, but to draw an accurate, anatomically accurate calf is there's subtleties, and that's the challenge. The challenge is once you start drawing the subtleties, once you move beyond just the basic, it's the calf, whatever. Once you move beyond that, once you start putting subtleties in, if they're in the wrong place, it gets harder and harder. So it's almost like a simple calf is easier to draw than an accurate calf. A simple calf will have less going on and therefore will feel like even if you didn't nail it, you're like, it's a calf, I get it. But as soon as you start trying to refine it and make it feel like a calf should, all right, I gotta put this book down. Let me find a clip, binder clip. I'll just clip this page because I need to look at it again. But my arm is, smashing the lights there. My arm is getting tired holding this up. Let's see here. So Vaughn says, is this drawing from Walt Reed? No, it's not from Walt Reed, although I'm kind of using a bit of the Walt Reed approach to work it out. I kind of went through this at the top of the stream. This is from figure drawing class. In fact, this is my homework for figure drawing class. The drawing on the left is a drawing that I drew during class, or actually it was an analysis of a drawing. And basically what it was is that the model's leg, it was a class, we're drawing heads, hands, and feet. So these are obviously the feet. And the drawing on the left was me adjusting the pose so that you could actually tell where the anatomy was, because it was more straight on and more foreshortened than the very first, the actual drawing that's in graphite. The other drawings here I'm doing are digital, but I made it so it was a little bit more of a 3/4 shot, and I made the lighting on the left side. I mean, I moved the lighting to the right and above instead of being lit from the left the way it actually was. And once I drew the drawing from the left, I thought, okay, this works. It looks like the leg is supposed to look. And then I tried to draw it lit the way that it was in reality, and they all came out horrible. And so we had a discussion during class in which I showed my instructor, um, and he said that he thought that it would behoove me to sit and do some structural analytical drawings of the pose and really get a sense of what it was doing anatomically, like just in terms of turning it into primitive shapes, which you've seen me do many times because that's kind of like my go-to when I'm trying to figure stuff out. So I was like, all right, let me go back, take another shot. So that's what this is me going through and working out the anatomical kinks. Let's see here. And once I get this sort of worked out, the plan is for me to go back and then still try and give it another shading, toning pass where I try to take these structural drawings I did with all of this, with all these cross contour lines and redraw them with just tone. And by the way, this is something that I realized a lot of people that have trouble with shading. I know you and I have talked about shading or rendering. I am of the opinion, and I don't know if this is controversial because oddly enough, I haven't really had this conversation with a lot of artists. But I'm of the opinion that doing cross contours is the key to learning shading, in the sense that, let me open a new layer here. If you take a sphere and you say, all right, I'm going to do a cross contour, like let's say here's where the Terminator is, and then you go another cross contour, maybe a light cross contour in here. It's probably too dark, right? Think I maybe drew this too small to really get in there with shading the way you need to. Let me zoom in so I can zoom in and bring my brush size down. There we go. So now we're looking at this sphere. We're drawing these cross contours. Now, if you just draw cross contours for your shading, that's also an answer in terms of people that are trying to figure out how to do cross hatching. I mean, cross hatching is just cross contouring, really. It's drawing lines that move with the direction of the contour and then lines that go against that cross the contour, hence cross contour, or hence cross hatching. But my point is that if you were to just do simple directional hatching that followed a form. So in what I mean by that is that this is going around, like as if you were to take the equator and you just drew all of the latitude lines. If you just took those lines and you blurred them, let me move to the smudge tool. If you just blur out Like I'm just smudging these cross contours. If you just blur your cross contours, they become shading. Now that isn't to say that this not it's not like this is a shortcut to how to render. This is more of an example of how to think about rendering. All rendering is cross contour with even tone. That's all it is. Period. Now, mind you, I haven't read Scott Robertson's How to Render book. I'm sure he has probably a much more nuanced approach to it, and who knows? I mean, I have his How to Draw book. I haven't had a chance to finish it yet, but I would definitely defer to him because he's the one who has decades of experience teaching rendering and drawing. But if you're just trying to approach this in terms of my rendering doesn't look right, I don't understand how to render, I don't understand the point of it, I don't understand what it's describing, then this is a very simple way to approach rendering. You know, I mean, like the same thing. If you were looking at a, I don't know, let's say a pyramid. And you might say, all right, I'm going to render with this, knowing that there's more light at the top than at the bottom. You might start with it like with the lines really close together at the bottom, and as you approach the top, they might get farther and farther apart, and thinner and thinner and thinner. And well, that line is not thinner, thinner and farther apart. And you might be like, okay, that's all rendering is. It's just saying this is how light is moving up that form. So the whole side is in tone, but it's darker at the bottom, meaning the lines are thicker and closer together, and lighter at the top. If that was soft and blurred, as I'm about to do now, it would just look like, oh, that is just rendering. That's what rendering is. It's like it's doing this where you're drawing it starting with the tone as opposed to converting it to tone. Let's see here. Vaughn says rendering is just contour with tone. That's worth writing down. Well, go ahead, write it down. Although remember, it's just contour lines, not just contour. It's contour lines, because when people talk about contour, what they're actually usually talking about is the edge of a form. So, you know, when you talk about what a contour is, the contour of a form is actually the outside edge of that. And what contour lines are is expressing the shape of something, but expressing it within the object. Like like the lines that I put, outside is contour. Inside are contour lines. Be great if I could spell. That's what I get for drawing really tiny examples. So yeah, within the form, if you've got lines that are expressing the shape of that plane or that shape of the outer object overall, so the contour is the outer edge, the contour line, and they are contour lines, but when I talk about contour lines, I'm talking about lines inside of the object that express the plane or the overall form. So that distinction is important only because it can be confusing if you just say contour lines. People might think that you're only talking about that outer shape, the outline. He says that sounds like some Walt Stanchville level wisdom. Well, that might be giving me a bit too much credit. But when it comes to art in general, We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. We're all standing on the shoulders of all of the wisdom of all the teachers that we've dealt with, that we've learned from over the years. So I find it hard to take credit for things only because I've had so many great teachers over the years, and it's like you take a little bit here, a little bit there, a little from this art book, a little bit from that art book. And at a certain point, it's hard to know where certain things come from and how many of the connections are connections where it's like, oh, I pieced something together. And how much of it is just, oh, I really just took this from this one person, this from this other person, put them together and realized, oh, this is part of the larger whole. And for the most part, those teachers all know the larger whole. They may just not necessarily realize that we needed someone to put it together for us. So at this point, we're at an hour. Um, I think that we're just about ready to wrap up. Now, to let you guys know what I'm going to be doing from here forward, this piece still is not complete in terms of me working out the contours, the contour lines. So this piece still isn't complete with that. But beyond that, I'm still going to do this a third time, trying to get the angle right, trying to get the foreshortening right. And then once I have those three, then I'm going to go through and do tonal versions of all of these. So yeah, it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of stuff to work through just to try and understand anatomy. But that's I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I look at this like trying to solve anatomy is like a great puzzle. You know, it's like a detective who isn't driven by, I mean, yes, you should want to help the victims and the victims of crimes get closure. But let's say that this is more like the Sherlock Holmesy type detective, the more of the fun Sherlock Holmes, or if you've been watching the new show Poker Face, the person who takes joy in the puzzle. That's what I am. I take joy in the puzzle. And if you want to take another thing away from this particular live stream, then that's the I guess as closing thoughts go, my closing thought is whatever you're struggling with, whether it's building an artistic business or it's doing logo or website design, whether it's you know, trying to do work-life balance, whether it's building a video game or a tabletop game, it's taking joy, finding joy in the struggle. And I know that I have a video that has a similar topic, but I think it's one of those messages that's worth repeating in the sense that we can beat ourselves up and make this whole process really not fun if we let ourselves. But remembering the reason why you got into making art in the first place, remembering that whether it came out good or bad, that you really enjoyed playing with these concepts and trying to figure these things out. Um, that it's one of those things that I'm saying it to you because I need to remind myself. There are times when I do get frustrated, where I am like, dude, why is this so hard? Why am I banging my head against the wall? And it's not like I get to the point where I'm going to give up. It's just like I get to the point where I stop enjoying it. And then I need to remind myself, hey, this is like that particular level of Mega Man that I couldn't get through, or that particular level of Metroid or Mario Brothers, whatever your old school video game metaphor you want to use, but that level that you couldn't beat, and you walked away and you let the system cool down because it's been on for 3 hours and it was starting to get hot. And you're like, all right, I need to walk away from this. And you walk away from it and you go and you get a bite to eat and you sit down and you read a comic book. And after like a half hour away from it, you're like, system's probably cool. Let me try one more time. That reminder, I think that we can all use that reminder to just come at this with a sense of play. Whenever you're frustrated, try to find a way to play. Which again, that's another one that could be a rhyme. So, all right, guys, I still have work to do on this, but I am going to take a break, um, take a bite to eat, maybe take a shower, and then I'll come back at this stuff later. But if you guys have something that you're working on and it's frustrating, take a break and then come back at it with a playful attitude. Have some fun with it, play with it. It's the best advice I can give you. All right. And on that note, let's go back here. And if you enjoy these videos and you'd like to get bonus live streams twice a month, we do a thing called Art Book Study Group, where we do deep dives into some of the best art books around, try to suck out all the knowledge we can. We do that over on Patreon, and it's they're not just these, they're like 2.5, 3 hour long sessions. So they are deep dives. We do them twice a month, and there's hundreds of hours already on the Patreon account for anyone who signs up. You get access to all the archive of the previous ones we've done. We've worked on some Bridgman. We've worked on some Ken Holtgren animal drawings. We have some where we just sit down and people have brought things that they're struggling with drawing wise. We've just done sessions where we work on that. And we've been doing a long running session on Walt Reed's The Figure, which we are, probably more than halfway through at this point. So we're just going through it page by page, drawing, studying, and analyzing it. A lot of what we're doing here, except studying from a specific art book. So for as little as $2 a month, you get access to all that. You get access to an online digital archive where you can read my comic books and their completion. You also get access to a Patreon exclusive Discord server where we share art talk, works in progress, feedback, encouragement, just general online art community. We continue more of what's going on here. You get access to all that for as little as $2 a month at patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. And if you would like a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated gifts delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. As well as if you'd like to buy some physical copies of my comic books for free digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can also pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both have extensive back matter, character sketches, thumbnails, photo reference. I basically show you how I put the whole book together. So you can get all of those. And there are book flip-throughs on the homepage of my YouTube channel for all of those. You can check those out, see what's inside before you buy. And before we sign off, I'm going to show you one more time for anybody who came in late and didn't see at the beginning of the live stream. I posted this on all the social medias, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. Oh, wait, I don't have my screen up. Let me go back to the screen. So, yes, for Black History Month, I did a tribute piece to Balaji Badeo. He was the man inside of the suit in the first Ridley Scott Alien movie, a Nigerian actor. And I didn't know until a few years ago that the man in the first Alien movie was a black man. So when I learned that, I was like, well, I'm definitely going to be doing him for Black History Month. And now that I've done this, I feel like what I should do going forward for Black History Month every year is just do a portrait of Black people in science fiction. So already what popped into my head immediately, especially with the new Picard series, so I was thinking about LeVar Burton doing a Geordie LaForge for Black History Month. I mean, he's done so many roles, but I'm what's weird though is I'm trying to decide whether I want to do him or do Michael Dorn as Dwarf. Yeah, Dwarf. Zorf. I can't remember character's name. My brain is. I haven't watched Next Generation in years. But anyway, just doing Black sci-fi, fantasy, and horror actors for Black History Month. That might be something that might be my thing every year is to do a portrait or a sketch. But anyway, I finished this one. This is just a piece for fun. It's not a print or anything. I just did it, shared it, want to put it out there. And I'll make sure it's posted. I think I have a time lapse that I can throw on shorts for YouTube of the making. Gary, you don't need to watch that. I know you find them boring. But for everybody else, just wanted to throw that out there and let you guys check that out. All right. So thank you so much for the comments, the feedback, hanging out with me while I'm working through these anatomy problems, these anatomy challenges. They're not problems, they're challenges. All right, guys. That's it for now. Go be creative.